Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tools and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I have Klara Sedlacek with me. Klara is an emotional wellness coach and certified EFT tapping and matrix reimprinting practitioner. Klara assists parents and children who have gone through trauma or adverse childhood experiences, transform tension into connection with mind-body techniques and trauma-informed coaching. Welcome, Klara. It's a pleasure to have you on the show with me today.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you so much for having me.
So you and I are going to talk about the anatomy of the stress response in children and how to transform tension into connection. So most of my listeners are familiar with EFT tapping. You know, I'm a practitioner and I've utilized that, but I was just explaining to you before we started recording is that I haven't worked with many little kids or many children when it comes to EFT tapping, or even parents for that matter. I've worked with teens and individuals. So, but I really want to dive into matrix reimprinting because that's a new modality for me. I've heard of it before, but I'm not really sure what it is. And I want to bring this modality to light for the listeners and the watchers out there who have never heard of this before either. So let's talk a little bit about that, what it is and what are the benefits.
So I think matrix is a kind of extension built up on tapping that you initially start with. The journey is similar. The start is you've chase the emotion through your body, through your memories, but very quickly you start looking for your echoes, which is your initial inner child, or the energy that you remember, or sometimes you don't even remember the specific moment, but you can just like dive in and follow that. And what I find is different than tapping, that sometimes tapping leaves a void after you work through something. You neutralize, but it's kind of you're neither, which is great that you don't react anymore. But matrix allows you to totally reprogram your brain, change your like molecular response to that event, which to me, it's an amazing feeling. Like for years, I had a memory that I would always end up under the table. No matter what modalities I used, I would always like have that memory, less reaction, but still be under the table. And with matrix, now I see myself sitting away from the table and being hugged. And that's a completely different energy, or an energy when used to be a conflict. Now it's me embracing my whole family, looking at a landscape that is healing after the war. So, you can go generations with this one, which is absolutely amazing. And it helps you to not only heal your energy, but help out and, dive into the energy of your whole environment, family, planet. You can go as big as you wish. It's really amazing.
That's amazing. And so similar to EFT tapping, can you do matrix reimprinting on yourself once you learn how to do it?
100%.
Okay. And it's all energy based, right?
It's all energy based. And, you pretty much the same way you do tapping, you can do matrix. And again, would I say, like, I think the biggest issue with tapping and matrix is if you're dealing with something traumatic, reach out for help. Like you can try a little bit yourself, but I find it's too overwhelming to go into it yourself. Like, but for little things, or especially when you're a parent, like whenever you feel triggered, that's something from your childhood telling you, hey, take care of me. And it doesn't mean you had a super traumatic childhood. It just means like you weren't validated or supported in the moment. But because when we are little, these things matter so much more, they kind of stay with us and we drag them with us because they kind of then, shape your view of the world, and you constantly being triggered by the same issue.
Yeah.
Even by different people, but, it always shows up in a very similar pattern. And then you can heal those things. You can just neutralize them and change them, and then proceed with like, I would say with elegance, when you're like dancing through the parenting crazy dance, you don't look like you're having a seizure. You're more of
you're having a meltdown.
yeah. You're more of a elegant dancer, although it's still a dance, and you still have to watch out for pitfalls. And
exactly. And it's so beneficial to have these tools on hand, especially when you have children. And like you said, there are times to reach out to a practitioner, and then there's times you can handle things yourself.
yeah.
And I know if, and what I've recognized is working with clients is they'll learn tapping and they'll do certain things on their own, but their subconscious will block certain things too, where they can't get past it, where I can, because I'm looking at it from like a third party standpoint, and I can say, okay, this is exactly where we need to go. And immediately they're like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. And I'm like, well, that's why you're not healing, is because there's a block there. And so, I think learning these modalities, it's so important to learn them on your own, but also to reach out to a practitioner, like you had mentioned, because that can be very helpful in peeling away the layers of the onion, so to speak. Right?
Totally. And, I find, especially with that modality with Matrix, is that you do get that separation, because let's say we are going to something that happened to you when you were 5, you're entering the world of the 5-year-old, but as an adult, and you are there to help the little one. So you are, and you coach yourself to enter in a neutral matter, just like you're watching a movie, but not that you are in it. So you're kind of helping yourself to get a separation there. But I find the best and the world-changing thing with tapping is start with a coach or practitioner, and then, because you're going to learn through the work with them, and then, then go and fly high for, with what you've learned, and keep learning, and, anybody can learn. But I think it's slightly irresponsible to just put the tool out there and be like, heal yourself, it's still...
Exactly. You're like, what do I do now? Right. Because there's times during my training, we would work with one another, and there were times when I would work and I couldn't get to the root cause, but then boom, I'm with a friend for 10 minutes and they're like, oh, here's the root cause. And I'm crying, or I'm releasing, I'm having some sort of an energetic release. So, but let's dive into the anatomy of the stress response in children. And you work specifically with little kiddos, toddlers and their parents. So what does that stress response look like in children? And is it different than what we have, the way we respond to stress as adults?
I think physiologically it's the same, exactly the same response, but emotionally it's different, because we as adults, we learn to, or we did not learn how to how to process our emotions in a healthy way. So especially moms, we tend to hide them, block ourselves from having those feelings, and feel guilty for having those feelings. So we create even more tension than there is. Toddlers, on the other hand, they'll tell you exactly where they are, what they need, and they keep telling you until you help them reach that state. So it's from the toddler point of view, it's a very healthy world of emotions, looking into our skewed, unhealthy world of years of just not knowing how to deal with that. Like, I would silent treat my husband for years before I learned tapping, because he would trigger me. I would think it's him, and I had no idea what to do with my anger. So I just kind of tried to hide it by not reacting, but that would result in
pressure cooker.
Exactly, very unpleasant moments for the whole whole family. So thanks to tapping, my husband is I think he's a 1 in 100, like he's a gem. So as he watched me go through the journey, he also started tapping and did his work. So it's an amazing feeling to have a partner next to you who's also helping you. What could it be, helping you figure things out. So we actually purchased a book, like emotional coaching for children, and we did it on ourselves, because we just never learned that. And we help each other. Seriously, like you have a toddler, the first thing you have to do is like help them label and then validate emotions. The same thing with adults.
I was gonna say, as adults, we act like toddlers.
Yeah, exactly.
We express our emotions.
What happens if you don't get validated? Your emotional response freezes. Like you don't know how to cope. So for the next couple of years, you try to figure it out, but then you kind of get stuck like 6, 7, 8 years old, and then what you develop are the coping mechanisms, but not actually, effective emotional regulation. So that's why I think in politics you see so many unhealthy events when you look at the US scene and Mr. Trump and things like that, like Grinch style politicians who never had a chance to have their emotions validated as children. And I think tapping gives you an amazing opportunity, especially Matrix, to go back and have those feelings validated, have those, heal that inner child who's been waiting for you for years to come back.
Yeah, and it's so imperative that us as adults go back and learn these tools and techniques. I mean, if we as conscious parents can teach our children at a very young age these tools, they are going to be able to cope in their adult life much better than we have been taught to cope. And, I was a bottler as well. I learned from my mom, and I do feel like, at least in my era, many mothers stayed home with their children, and the children will pick up on, those cues from mom. And so I was always kind of labeled the sensitive one, but I think it's because I'm highly empathic. I was picking up on a lot of emotions around me. And I was, moving those emotions through, but yet, my mom was a much more bottle things up. Don't let people see your weakness. Don't let people see that emotion. And so I learned, that behavior. And looking back at my ex-marriage, I bottled up a lot, and I was a pressure cooker, and then I would lash out and I would explode. And that clearly didn't work out in my favor when it came to that relationship. But then after that relationship, I learned these tools and these techniques. And now, and on top of that, learning muscle testing or applied kinesiology has been very beneficial for me as well, because I can muscle test where did this emotion begin? What pattern? Is it generational? Is it mine? Did I pick it up? And then I can it kind of leads me to where I need to tap. And so just utilizing all these different modalities. And I don't know about you, but I know for me, it's like these building blocks. I've just learned one after another, and then I utilize them all oftentimes within my sessions or even in my own personal healing. And that's the beauty of energy work, right? That it all just works together seamlessly.
It's amazing. I also learned while working with children, I learned picture tapping, which is again, build off tapping, but it's just drawing pictures and not talking about the actual, you don't have to talk about anything related to the situation. It's done in a very abstract way, and that's a part of my daily routine. And I have a daily journaling practice, and I only have 3 questions there. And first one is how I'm feeling, and whenever I'm feeling under, and I don't have a time in the morning as a mom to dive into a full tapping session, but I'll just do like a 5 minutes of picture tapping, and it always helps me to kind of release a bit, get to the next level with energy, not keep diving down, but just kind of stabilize, or even understand that moment and see what's that about, and go and make breakfast and, get the family going in a healthy way, instead of just, boiling my things with them since the morning.
You're putting that right into food, all that anger right into the food.
There you go.
A sprinkle of anger and resentment.
Yeah. So cereal. That's why, I've always been interested in kindness, peace, world peace, the Dalai Lama, always been looking into the light. And when I found tapping, especially now when I work with families, I'm like, that is the most nurturing statement in the whole world that the tapping starts with. And it's for every mom to show their child how she feels. She says, even though I feel angry, I accept how I feel, or I accept myself. And that's what parenting is about, to not have feelings, but to show our children how we deal and how we accept our feelings, and that it's absolutely okay to feel crazy, but through tapping, breathing, other tools that you work with, we learn not to react upon them.
Absolutely. So, what impact does growing up in a stressful environment have on our brain and our nervous system? Like if, you're a child at a young age and there's constant stress going on, how does that affect you as an adult?
Yeah, you just pretty much become dysregulated adult. You got PTSD style symptoms, ADHD style symptoms. You are more prone to depression, alcoholism, all kinds of addiction tendencies, suicide. Just your brain doesn't have a break, doesn't have a way to connect the neurons in a way that would let you just walk through the emotions. It immediately raises the alarm whenever something's happening, and you get triggered right away. Like it reacts to reactivity, and either you start to react or you shut down.
Yeah.
But, I find we always say fight or flight response, but as a child, you do not have a chance to fight. It's most of the time we are dealing with freeze response. Mm-hmm. And you just carry that freeze response from childhood that then usually develops into a fight, that anger response.
Yeah.
But most of the parents that come and want to deal with their, anger, it always comes, 90% of the times it comes to feeling helpless as a child.
Oh, and, I can speak from my experience growing up with that bottling of emotions. It presented later on as perfectionism and obsessive compulsive disorder for me. And so it was like just playing itself out in, every aspect of my life, through school and then through all the jobs I had, and then even trickling into my relationships. And so it can present itself in a variety of fashions, right? Because our emotions, once they get bottled up, they need to come out at some point, and they're going to spill over at a certain extent, and we don't know what they're going to look like when they come out, right? And so it's very, like you said, as a toddler, they really show their emotions, and it's important to foster that in a positive way. So let's talk a little bit about discipline versus guidance, and how does our personal upbringing impact the way that we raise our children, and the importance of fostering that emotional release within our kids.
I think whenever something's happening with my toddler and I'm on the edge of, doing something that I would not want to be doing, I train myself to just go limp, to just soften, slow down, walk away, whatever I need to do in that second. But what really I'm really watching out is not to use my physical power in her emotional world. And, I don't mean spanking, but like manipulating her physically to go somewhere, not go somewhere, take something from her hands when she doesn't want to give it. I think those are the moments when I could, obviously, I'm in charge, I'm an adult, I could go in and just do it. But I think those are the moments that you are honoring them as who they are, when you can just wait with that trained response we have in us to just take it out of their hands or stop them to do that. But when you think about what's your trigger compared to what's really happening, and what would seriously happen if they did this extra thing that they're not supposed to do, when we look at the difference between, I think, discipline and guidance in this, if you're parenting from a space of fear, then you're often coming into the discipline realm. But if you're parenting from a space of trust in yourself and healthy self-esteem, then you are free to guide. But if you're grasped with that fear of, I'm going to mess this up, judgment from being judged as a child, you carry that to the discipline style parenting, then that's what's happening for you. But if you can, take a break, and I think toddlerhood and having children is that amazing opportunity in your life to just look what you grew up with and how you're using it in your parenting style. Because as I think Bruce Lipton said that until age of 6, we are in that kind of a hypnagogic hypnotic state that you're just downloading without being able to reason, because we don't have the brain capacity, and also our brain works in different wavelengths. So we are just kind of in that like, whoa, that's why, media don't want us to watch too much TV when we are kids. So we don't just, get into that downloading state. But then everything what happens to you, what is said to you, what you sense, especially as a sensitive person, then that gets internalized, and that creates your world that you base your whole life on. And then children come and they're like, it creates this whole mess in your life, and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy, they're acting out, I'm the worst parent. But this is the best time to look at it and use this as a transformational time for yourself. That's why I say, using tension or transforming tension into connection, because that tension is gold. It has to happen for you in order to change that. And if you don't feel tension, bravo, you had an excellent childhood. And I hope, fingers crossed, that there's parents who had a great childhood. I'm sure there are, and I'm so grateful. But if you struggling and things are just coming at you left and right, you are the majority. You belong to our camp, and you are not alone. But use these moments to transform them into tension. And I always have this saying, like, what's your one unhealed thing? Because it can become super, challenging. What should I do? What should I tap on? Like, there's so many things. Well, use a single tiny moment of trigger or tension, and use that tiny moment to heal that tiny moment. And don't think about the whole array of healing and going into a cave for 30 years so you come unreactive. So it's tiny little steps. Like, you don't have to be a Superman to do everything, but just use micro tension to do micro healing. and
use that tension for teaching moments, and to really use EFT tapping in the moment. I know, for me, in those moments of, if I'm having a stressful day or a panic attack or whatever it may be, it's like, okay, this is when I need to use the tools. This is crutch time right now. Yeah. It's like, come on, let's go. Let's use what we know so we can transform that energy in the moment. And those emotions are just energy in motion. And so, when our children are acting out or lashing out, we've got to take a step back and ask ourselves, what is the root cause of this? Where is this stemming from? And then we've got to also ask ourselves, how did I react as a child when I was in this situation too? So there's a lot of conscious reflection that needs to take place, because our kids are little mirrors, right? And they mirror so much back to us, and for our own personal healing too. And I know it can be challenging because they're pretty strong little mirrors sometimes.
You're right. They are strong mirrors. And the thing is, almost everything can be dealt with if you have the patience to be curious, to find out, what is this about? Like, I had a client whose child would always throw the milk on the ground. Like, she would request milk, get it, throw it on the ground. And obviously that was causing a massive trigger with the mom, and she just couldn't really deal with it. So it would get into
that's liquid gold. What are you doing?
Right? Like, don't you dare throwing the milk on the ground. Like, her memories of her parents telling her all this, like, can't waste food, and her trying to keep it together. And then what it came to after we did tapping is, it came to her own event with her mom when she would take things from her, and she would just felt that helplessness in the moment, that she couldn't do anything. But when it happened next time and she had that extra, just little bit of space to ask, okay, what is this about? Ask her daughter, 2-year-old, or, she told her that she wants to pour the milk herself.
Oh, she wants a little independence.
Yeah, and that was it. After that, no more spilled milk and no more crying over spilled milk.
That's funny.
But, it's super funny, but like, it gives you that, it doesn't make you a Dalai Lama, that you just like, spilled milk, fantastic, thank you. But it gives you that working space to figure out, what is this about? What is this about within me? And what is this about with you? What can we do about it? Like, how can we do this together? Partnership.
Yeah, and using that communication there, and especially, when they're at the age they can talk, and it's got to be frustrating. I mean, we all went through it, those ages where we didn't have our voice yet. And, so what is some advice that you can give to parents to navigate tantrums with peace, especially out in public? I see this a lot. I actually saw it the other day. I was at Target, and this poor mom, she had 3 boys, and they would look like they were all under the age of 5. And she had a little one, and the little one was throwing a fit, and the poor mom just looked exhausted. And so what advice do you have for mothers, or even fathers for that matter, who are in a public place like a restaurant or somewhere where they can help through that tantrum?
Forget everybody else. Just go inward and take care about you and your child. Nobody else matters. Although you might have the experience of, your parents being not kind when you had your emotions. Just validate your child's feelings, no matter where they are, what they are doing. And hug them, love them. But forget everything about anybody else. This is your time to build. This is sacred space for you and your child. Nobody else has any room in that. And then, the practical space is, okay, soften your own expectations, soften what you're doing, just soften your inner language to yourself. If you can, do a tapping, just tell yourself, even though I feel this crazy frustration, I'm about to explode, I accept myself. So, first of all, the peace is peace. The P is peace of mind. And you can do the in the now with quick tapping sequence, or you can work, if that's triggering for you, you can do that later on and work on that specific trigger. But get there with the P, with your peace of mind. And then if you enter the tantrum with both of you guys drowning, nobody can help anybody.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But if you can get a little bit of a raft, let's say, you're still there, still not, super cool, but you are holding on to something, you can still help your child more. And just know that these are the most stressful time for your child, but for you too. And we are all in this together. Like, the world without tantrums does not exist. Your role is not to stop tantrums. Your role is just to validate your child's emotion and love them and hold them through it and let them know they are accepted, even though they are going through all these feelings. And you might not understand them. I barely know what it is about. And what I do is to work on my frustration and on my overwhelm. But I'm trying to be the one who has a little bit more floating power than my child.
Yeah.
But forget anybody else. Like, I have a matrix reimprinting visualization that goes into creating that space. So when the tantrums happen, you're there. You can go in your space right away and you don't have to deal with the world. But, this is your time. And how you respond now will matter how your child will respond to stress 30 years from now. Mm-hmm. So don't rush it. Don't feel like you have to, if your child is too loud, that's okay. Just tell them what you're doing. Say, I'm going to take you. We can be right here. You don't have to go in the restaurant. It's totally safe to take the child somewhere else. But if they are just non-movable, non-responsive on the ground, just lay down next to them. and show them that you understand their frustration. And usually words don't really matter. What matters is your energy and your body language and your eyes and your heart.
Yeah. And being present there with the
Right,
child in that
yeah.
moment, because, you know, I worked with grieving families for nearly 20 years, and, you know, they too, you know, I'm not saying they threw tantrums, but they definitely had emotional bursts, you know, and really it just came down to needing their basic needs met. You know, maybe they were hungry, thirsty, they needed attention, there was something on their mind, you know, the energy was off, you know, whatever it is. And I think, especially with empathic children, they're picking up on all these different senses, and they're sensory overload, you know. And so us, you know, as adults, we don't always pick up on that. I know for me, I have a very powerful clairaudience, and so loud noises make me very jerky and, you know, very stressed. And so, you know, if you have a child who has clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, which many of them do, they are picking up on more senses than we can even realize that they're picking up on. And so they could be seeing things on people, or they could be hearing, you know, things. And so we don't really even know, and they don't even know. They're trying to process it all as well. And I can only imagine how intense that can be in a little baby.
Know, toddler world is, or even children world is, it's crazy. It's like, imagine you cannot do anything by yourself. Whatever you want, you have to ask someone, and you have to ask someone politely. And if you really need it in the moment, you are expected not to yell. And you cannot go and just open the fridge and eat what you want. You have to wait for someone to give you what you're supposed to eat. And when you go especially to supermarkets, you know, things are there that you want and you cannot have. And that does not happen to our adult world. Like, if I'm craving that chocolate, even though I shouldn't be, I'm gonna get it and then wolf it down in the bathroom, you know. if it comes to my need.
You might need a tap on that one.
Oops, did I spill out too much?
I'm just picking. That sounds like a good one to tap on.
Yeah. Obsessive compulsive chocolate shopper.
You're a mom and you're in the moment. It's like, you got to do what you got to do.
You got to do what you got to do. So they cannot do that. And, you know, things that we understand that are natural and happen to them are not, they don't understand why we have to go to work, why we are rushing them in the morning to schlep them into daycare. These are not children-friendly things. They want to be with us, with our parents. They don't care that we have work. Why should they? They want us to be with them and play with them all day long, pretty much. Or play with their mate. Yeah. But, you know, we have structured society, and they are now being part of so many things that they shouldn't be part of.
And they're bucking the system.
You know, that every time I pick my child from daycare, it's like an emotional release that she gets when she sees me. And we always have like a little bit of an emotional time. And so when your children go through this, when they know they are supported no matter what, like, that's the best thing you can do for them, and don't worry about the rest.
Yeah.
Like, I think the parents that I go to or we share the daycare with, they are like pretty cool, because we share what our kids do and what we do to help them. And we just share between each other how, like, we cannot press the buttons in the elevator. That's the role of the child. And if we do make a mistake, there's punishment for us. Like, my daughter has like this revenge button pushing that she pushes all the buttons if I make the mistake. And then we go to the 5th floor and we stop in each level. And each level I'm talking to myself, even though I cannot take this, even though I want to just, you know, explode in the elevator, I want to just fly out to the moon. But when we get up, you know, I'm not raging. I'm just super exhausted. I'm annoyed. But I still see that little bit of reality there, that, you know, she's 3, she's frustrated, and this is her way of coping.
Yeah.
And helps me to, because reactivity was is still my biggest like foe. I always try to meditate on it or do something on it. Like, it was I kept thinking that it's my biggest fault of being reactive. But, and please, moms, dads who are listening to this, it's nobody's fault. It's just a human being who was thrown into the world that was not ready to nurture you. And this is a reaction to not being nurtured. It's not reaction because you're a bad person.
Yeah.
Or angry person. You're just a hurt person going, trying to figure this out, transforming this into something more beautiful, which is connecting to your children, connecting to your partner, and connecting to the community.
Absolutely. And it's really amazing if you look back at, what we learned from our parents and then how we can transform that with our own children. And, I don't have children, but I have a lot of friends who do. And I've had conversations with them, about this. And, you have a choice. You have a choice to continue unhealthy patterns, with your kids, or you have a choice to shift and to create healthy patterns with your kids. So Klara, this has been a really fun conversation, and I want to end it with, what is the effect of low self-esteem on parents, and how can one escape that guilt cycle? Because I know whether you're a mom or a dad, oftentimes you feel like you're not giving enough, you're not doing enough for your child, or, maybe you feel like, wow, I haven't broken the patterns that I went through in my childhood. So, what is that effect on that, and how can we help? How can we change that?
With self-esteem, I think the biggest indicator of self-esteem is the level of criticism you raise towards yourself in your inner talk. Like, nobody hears you but yourself. And the way you talk to yourself is the way you see the world. And you filter the world through your criticism towards yourself, and then you start internally criticizing others, your child, your partner. And it's not to criticize, it's to make yourself feel better, that internally you are better than that lady across the street, that mom across the street, but you don't know that you're doing it. It's just your subconscious trying to protect yourself from that pain you carry. So start paying attention to what you say to yourself and start working on that. Like, you can catch the inner talk. You can see what you're saying to yourself. Like, that's nothing crazy. That's not an energy work. You can just listen to what you're saying to yourself. And whenever you say that and connect it to tapping, and just say, even though I feel right now I did this, or I just did this and I'm a bad person, or, I'm not good as a mom, I accept how I feel, and take that notch down. That will allow you to not give that thought so much energy. Instead of reacting and then, starting to judge yourself more, and add to the filter that you have through your upbringing, that we all have, and we see the world through our filter. Then you just starting to take the filter apart pixel by pixel by tiny action. And you don't need, any specific therapy or tap for years. You can just do that in the moment right there. Just whatever comes up, greet it with the tapping sentence. You don't even have to tap, just say that to yourself. And whenever things happen, you're going to start seeing that you're not saying that anymore with such a urge, and things are starting to come up a little bit more softly than you are used to. And then if you can, get into that and tap on whatever's coming up. And obviously long-term goal is to do some matrix reimprinting, to talk to your little self when you heard these comments towards yourself, when you felt you've been criticized, not accepted. Give yourself the toddler treatment. I say that it's like to start accepting how you feel, and accept your inner, your older little selves, how you felt when you were little, and start being gentle to yourself first, and then you can be gentle to your child and to the world.
Absolutely. And, I have another technique to add on to the tapping that I learned too. And in those moments when you have that negative self-talk spiraling and creating momentum, just say, cancel, and then reestablish a new statement. So if you have that negative self-talk of, I'm a bad mom, or, whatever it may be, then you say, cancel, I am doing the best that I can, or however you want to rephrase that. So you're just rephrasing it from a negative statement, checking yourself, catching yourself, and then reprogramming yourself in the moment. And you can tap on that as well. If you want to just say it, or you want to tap on your thymus. I'm a big supporter of I know the thymus
I
is
love that.
7 point, in the tapping, but I love this point. And I've actually had clients just tap on that the whole session, so, and you don't even have to tap. Like you said, you can hold that point, any of the points, you can just hold them and reprogram yourself in that moment. And you can teach your children these techniques and tools as well. And so, Klara, this has been such an enlightening conversation. I've really enjoyed it. And like I said, even though I don't have children, I know there's many people out there that do. And there's many of you out there that can utilize this information and utilize these very simple, free, easy techniques that EFT tapping and matrix reimprinting can do, for you. So, Klara, how can people connect with you? Where can they reach out? What services do you provide?
They can reach out to me through my website, klarasedlacek.com, and if you can put it in the show notes so they know the spelling. I'm also on Instagram, and I offer a virtual retreat, a 6-week retreat where you learn how to nurture the now, release the past, and you learn all these techniques, and you get a mini course on emotion through toddlerhood, and it's a releasing course for there's no homework, it's just nurturing and releasing.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. So, Klara, I really appreciate your energy that you're bringing into the world. I appreciate you teaching our toddlers and our parents how to transform tension into connection. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, it was such a pleasure. What a great talk we had. Thank you so much for having me.
You deserve to navigate your life as an empath in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT Tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.thesoulcafe.org.